Hey everybody and welcome back. We're going to do another kind of short video, hopefully, kind of talking about how we can think about polymorphism, what does it mean, and specifically looking at how does this allow us to do things that we wouldn't normally be able to do. And what I'm going to focus on here is we're going to have two classes, a circle and a square class. They're both extending the shape class, which we'll take a look at in a minute. But we'll look at how we can use the fact that they both extend shape to kind of allow us to do things we wouldn't normally be able to do. How we can treat them in a similar way that even though they're different kind of data types, we'll be able to kind of look at how we can use them in a similar way. Okay, so let's go through the circle and square class. Hopefully you've seen enough examples where people walk through shapes and using them to create a class, and so we won't spend too much time. But our circle class, it includes a radius as a private double variable, and we have the nice constructor here. So when we create a new circle, we're going to set it with the radius. We also have a couple methods that do some math. We have the get perimeter and get area, as well as a getter for our radius value. Our square is basically the exact same. We're going to keep track of the length, so the length of one side. From there we have a constructor for the square to set that length. We have the get perimeter, get area, and a getter for the length. So that'll all be useful. So what makes them extend shape? Well, first we should probably look at our shape class and see what that is. Our public abstract class shape has two abstract methods. What does that mean? What that means is the abstract means we can't actually create a shape. And that kind of makes sense. When I draw something on a whiteboard or anything, I draw a shape. That shape is a square or it's a circle. It's not just a shape, or maybe it's a non-regular polygon or whatever it is. But we wouldn't just call it that particular thing is a shape. The thing we create would be a square or a circle or a rectangle or a rhombus, and then that is also a shape, but it's a particular shape. It's the same kind of idea. Our square class is going to be a particular class we can instantiate, but it'll also function as a shape. And what does it mean to function as a shape? Well, it means it has to implement the methods that we say it should. In this case, our shape abstract class has two abstract methods, the get perimeter and get area. So that means for any class to qualify as a shape, it has to have these two methods, and it has to implement them because these are currently abstract, so they don't have the implementation. And so do the square and circle classes implement that? Well, yes. We can see in our square class we have the get perimeter and get area method. So those are the things to make it qualify as a shape. And then we can extend the shape class. And in our circle class, we have the get perimeter and get area. And then we can extend shape. And that means we now qualify as a shape. So what does this mean now that they're both shapes? So what does that allow us to do? And the really cool example we have here, let me size my code over a little bit. Now let's move the shape class over as well. So what we see here is I have my main method. We create a shape array. Now this is kind of interesting. Let's think about this for a second. We can't actually create shapes, but we could think about, an array is kind of like a bag of objects. We can put a bunch of data into a array, and then they're all kind of together, and we can use the cool square braces to access particular ones. And that way they're all kind of grouped together. We can do fun stuff like put for loops to iterate through it if we go back and look at some of the previous videos. But the cool thing here is now that we have, subclasses of our shape, we can have particular things within our shape array that aren't necessarily the same type. So what does that mean? Well, we have our shape array. It's going to hold two things, okay? But what we're doing here, if we look at lines 8 and 9, in index 0 of our array, we're putting in a circle. And in index 1, we're going to put a square. because they're both shapes, both of those classes, the circle and the square, they both extend shape and they implement all the methods they need to. Because of that, we can now basically store those as if they were shapes. So our array is of shapes, but we can put whatever type of shape we want. It's kind of like a specific shape. And we can think about this, why is this useful? Well, now, normally we'd have to kind of handle, we can't just make a circle array. We'd have to make a circles, and then we'd have to make another array for squares, and then later on, if we add in, I don't know, rhombuses or triangles, we'd have to create another new array for that. But because we made them all implement shape, we can put them all into the same category. And this will save us a lot of time writing code, because think if I had to do this for circles, and then I had to copy and paste and do it for all the squares, and then I had to copy and paste it later, that would become a lot of work. Instead, now I can just put them all into the same box, essentially. So we're going to create a new circle, call its respective constructor, and call a square, and call its respective constructor with the square 2.0. And so now shape 0 holds a circle, shape 1 holds a square, but we can both get the area of them. Because remember, what are the two things we have here? In our shape method, we are allowed to get the perimeter and get area. And so since we're treating these objects like shapes, we're going to be able to call the get area and get perimeter. Now, what's one thing? Are we losing anything out on this? Well, let's see. Shape array sub 0 dot get radius. Well, we know shape array 0 is a circle. Why are we not allowed to get the radius? It says it's not defined. And it's because right now we're treating it like a shape and not a circle. And so this can sometimes cause some problems, because right now we can't really think about this index 0 like a circle anymore. Really, it's a shape. We're allowed to do things that shapes do, but we're not necessarily right now allowed to do the things that a circle would be able to do. And this kind of makes sense, right? Because what differentiates me from saying shape 0.getRadius or shape 0.getLength? Obviously, this wouldn't make sense because, well, we put a circle in there, so we shouldn't be able to use the square methods. But it's that kind of idea. It's the same. It's essentially the same thing, because right now we're treating them as shapes, and so we can't really access some of those extra things for the particular subclass. So that's what we are not allowed to do. What's the other thing we would be allowed to do? Well, we'd be allowed to use the get perimeter method, because that's available in the shape class. Get perimeter. And then from there we could probably do some other things. I could create a circle C2 or C1, and I think I might be able to cast shape array sub 0. So what did I just do here? Well, I took our shape that was a shape, and then I made it the particular thing I wanted to make it. In this case, I wanted to make it a circle. And so now system.out.print circle 1, we can do radius, something only circles can do. We can only get the radius of a circle. C1.get radius. Now what did I do here? I took we have our shapes, which is our array. Our array is in shapes, but I know it's a circle. And so I can take that particular shape and I can bring it back to being a circle. And now that C1 is defined as a circle, it's a particular thing. Remember, shape 0 here is of type shape. C1 is of type circle. And because C1 is of type circle, I can now access those additional methods. So let's run it. Let's see what happens. We'll probably have to grab the output over here. And we can see shape 0 and shape 1, they have the respective areas, but remember they are shape objects that we're talking about. And then lastly at the bottom here, we have the circle that we created, which is we casted the shape back to the circle that we really want so that we could access the additional things that a circle can do, like get a radius. Hopefully this was helpful. I recommend kind of playing around, seeing what things are you allowed to access and what things aren't you allowed to access. And then looking at that and trying to understand why is really going to help you understand the point of polymorphism. Why is it useful for us to be able to treat things as the same class sometimes and different classes other times? So I recommend playing around with it. Try copying and pasting some of this code. You can pause the video, go back and rewind, and grab that code for yourself. And we'll see you in the next one.